Good morning and welcome back to the Livingston Parish News Morning Show. My name is McHugh David, publisher and editor of the news. Appreciate you joining us this morning. If you're watching us live on Facebook, thanks for that. We appreciate it. If you are watching this later, because we do upload these shows to www.livingstonparishnews.com/podcast. There are audio and video versions there for you to partake in at any particular time that you feel like watching it. Or, of course, Facebook keeps this video live, so you might be or up and running, so you might watch it later in the day. Either way, however you're joining us, we do appreciate it this morning. Let's jump into your traffic real quick. Delays starting at O'Neill on I-12 westbound, heading back all the way to Jubin. It's going to be a rough morning for those of you getting on the interstate. Looking like an accident there near the O'Neill interchange. That's causing delays, obviously it's causing delays as we are all used to with our commute, pushing off onto the surface streets. Delays are starting at 190 4H Club Road and River Road, as well as on 190 and Jubin Road. And of course, here at about 7:30 in the morning, there's still delays in and around most of the high schools, especially on Burgess and 447 in Walker, as well as 1025 and 447 north of Walker. There's also delays on 16 heading out of the Live Oak High School area and delays on 16 in Denham Springs. It's currently 41 degrees, 68 degrees is your high, 44 will be your overnight low, so getting into that 60 degree, 40 degree weather. May have some more warmer weather coming as we are going to stay in the sunshiny mode for the rest of the week. So it is going to be a beautiful day, just a little chilly, but it is going to get up to a nice crisp 68 degrees, so it'll be a nice day. There is a missing teenager in the Walker area. The Walker Police Department reported it last night, about 24 hours after the child had gone missing. His name is Angel Hernandez Perez. He's 5'2", 130 pounds, brown hair, brown eyes. He's 14. He was last seen probably leaving his home on his black bicycle. They're looking for him in the Walker area. He has been missing since Monday night. Any information you might have, please call the Walker Police Department. 2 parish employees were picked up for stealing guns while on the job. So during Thanksgiving week, 2 Department of Public Works workers, Kelby Henderson and Adam Church, were out and about and decided to break into a home and steal some firearms. They retargeted that home on December 2nd and were promptly caught and arrested thanks to the home having some security cameras. And stayed up into 8 watersheds. Livingston Parish is part of a group that includes Ascension, East Baton Rouge, East and West Feliciana, St. Helena, Tangipahoa, Washington Parish, and St. Tammany. So Florida parishes plus, I guess you can call it. A lot of things on the North Shore, that sort of area. The reason they're doing watersheds is they're trying to get groups to come together to compete for this money that they are doling out, for larger projects. They want to build projects that affect entire watersheds as opposed to just single canals, single creeks, single rivers, that sort of thing. So that our group, I say our as in Livingston, we are Watershed 7, will be meeting this Friday trying to discuss who wants what kind of money and what they want to do with it and try to come up with some more regional watershed flood implements. There are several project types that have different pools of money attached to them. Everything from large-scale regional projects to state projects to modeling and planning, as well as policy. Now, of course, those go in order of the amount of money that has been delegated to each separate type of project. So, of course, those regional projects have the biggest pool of money, which is roughly about $500 million of that $1.2 billion. Also want to go ahead and mention that it's about $50 million in terms of administrative costs. From there, the state has the next highest pool of money or for state projects, and that's trying to get them going. And then there is the modeling, and then there's the policy. So there are 4 project types. Of course, one of the things Livingston Parish might be looking into is trying to get a funding swell for their master drainage plan, which they had put money aside for a grant match in the 2020 budget. So it will be interesting to see if they go after that. And what other projects that Livingston Parish, Denham Springs, and Walker try to throw towards this group. That would be Watershed 7. Watershed 7, the fiscal agent for it will be the Capital Region Planning Commission, and it will be they'll be having to work together, all of these parishes. So interesting to see how that coalition will come together. However, the action plan for the Louisiana Watershed Initiative does say that they are going to reward watersheds that work together and have regional projects and plans in place that will help the entire area, as opposed to just throwing a bunch of individual projects out. However, individual governmental entities are allowed to submit directly to the program. So it kind of going to be a little bit of political game here. However, Livingston Parish is a HUD designated disaster area, and part of that as well as FEMA. So part of that is because of the August of 2016 floods. 50% of that 1.2 billion automatically has to go to the 10 parishes that are HUD and FEMA disaster designation areas. So 10 parishes are going to be trying to compete over about $600 million, while about 26 other parishes are going to be competing for the rest. Of course, that's nowhere does it say that that $600 million has to be doled out evenly among those parishes. And as we've kind of learned coming forward, that even just cleaning a ditch cost a couple $1 million. So it will be interesting to see if some of these focus on larger scale projects, or if folks are trying to get a bunch of little projects done. However, it is a competitive process that will last through 2024. There are 3 rounds of funding. The first round is $100 million, and then round 2 will be in 2022, and then round 3 will be in 2024. Got those backwards. Sorry about that. So also want to point out, as we move from the Louisiana Watershed Initiative, which is going to be a 5-year or 4-year long-term project, is into the Darlington. Darlington was brought up just a few weeks ago in front of the COMET task force. It is the focus of this Thursday's paper. It's a project that has been on the books in terms of flood control since the 80s. It's important to remember that back in the 80s, the price point was 100 to 150 million. That price point has now soared to $1.8 billion. So I'm going to say that again. In the late 80s, early 90s, the Darlington Reservoir was tapped as a $100 to $150 million project. Now in 2019, it is a $1.8 billion project, according to the Corps. It's going to be a tough process if this is even going to come into reality. One of the things that was learned at the COMET task force meeting, let me back up a second and say that the COMET task force is headed by Ms. Valerie Hodges out of Watson. She's state representative. The idea is that they were pushing for the COMET diversion canal to be built. Now they are looking at, now that that has gotten off the ground, which by the way, it is on time. It's going to happen on time. Now that that is out of the way, or at least underway, they're moving on to other drainage implements inside the Amite River Basin. Now, we just talked about a $1.2 billion block grant. Unfortunately, only half of that is designated for this area. And that clearly does not even come close to the $1.8 billion. Plus, those funds are divided up into projects. So this project only comes under one heading. So there's not going to be a whole lot of money from Watershed Initiative for Darlington, but maybe some seed money to get it started. However, the problem is also going to be that the Darlington is part of a larger watershed study that's already underway. It's just a piece of it, and it's a 3-year feasibility study. The end of 2019 going into 2020 will be year 1 of that study. So there's still 2 more years before the Darlington would even be presented to Congress as a feasible project. So it's no funding, no nothing. We're just talking about a feasibility study. So Ms. Hodges asked the folks of the Corps, could the state go around that? And since DOTD, which is the Department of Transportation and Development, is a sponsoring, I guess you can call it on-the-ground state-level sponsor of the project, they could and apply to have it be part of the Corps system as flood mitigation later. Still got to come up with that $1.8 billion. So right now it's looking as a 90-foot raised, elevated land mass that surrounds the river's path. Then box culverts, very large box culverts, will be used to control the flow of the river. In a high river situation, once those box culverts fill, the water will then begin to rise 90 feet. There will be a surrounding sort of swell, not a swell. I guess you can say they're just going to build a giant hill around this 800,000 acre piece of land. And it will go up 90 feet, 800,000 wide. If it hits the top, because we got that much water, there will be a spillway to release valve, I guess you can say, to let some of that water out, and it'll push it down the Amite probably about a mile further as that spillway drains out the top. No telling how much that would have drained in the 2016 flood. However, according to models from an engineering company called Dewberry, that would have, the Darlington that is, would have reduced flooding in the Denham Springs area by 7 feet in the 2016 flood. So, and the Comite Diversion Canal is said to be 1.5 to 2 feet. So you're looking at 9 feet total from those two projects, which were both scrapped in the 1980s and 90s when they only would have cost about $300 million. Now that in today's cost would have been about $600 million, but because of land acquisition, new environmental studies, and just time, those costs both have soared up to about it was $350 million for the Comite as opposed to $100 million, and it's now $1.8 billion as opposed to $150 million for the Darlington. So those things would have been very helpful in the 2016 flood. However, as we know, they did not exist, and now they are much, much, much more expensive. So the Darlington is still being studied. No idea if it will happen, but it's been a big push since the 80s for a dam-like structure to be built. It's about 40 miles north of Denham Springs where the Comite and Amite come together. So there you have it. It would protect about 12,000 square miles of the watershed if it was completed. One of the questions that was asked of the engineer from Dewberry is how would a dam 40 miles north of Denham Springs had helped? And he said, well, it does not help localized flash flooding, but much of the water that ended up in Denham Springs actually came 50, 60 miles north of us that fell in the Comite and Amite River basins. Both the Comite Diversion Canal and the Amite, or the Darlington on the Amite, would have been able to hold a lot of that water so that the flash flooding water could drain out, and that would be coming down steadily. The river still would have risen, but it may not have risen to 46 feet. It may have been more like 38, 39 feet, which is very manageable for a lot of areas. But it would have caused problems for Port Vincent and French Settlement, probably, but it's still very manageable for the Watson-Denham area. So it would have been a very different scenario. That would be the engineer from Dewberry, even modeled a disaster scenario where he had all the rain coming in the Denham Springs area with only a little bit of it north touching the Darlington. He said it still would have had a 3 to 4 feet effect. Plus, once that flash flooding water exited the Denham area, there would not have been as much, or if any, flooding as there was in 2016. So one of the statements that he made that will end the discussion on the Darlington is that flooding of that scale does not happen because of localized rain. It has to be a large system that covers a lot of area and drops a lot of water upstream from where the flooding occurred. So that's important to remember. If you're looking for some kind of example of that, just take a look at the Mississippi and think about all the rain and the snow melt that the middle America, I guess you can call it, as well as the Rockies experienced, and how that ended up down here, and how we've had to open the spillway more times than we've ever had to open it, and how the river was very, very, very high, destroyed some dams in Arkansas. That's the same kind of thing. It has to be a ton of rain upstream for it to have that kind of effect down here in Denham Springs. So that's why the Darlington would help. So there's that explanation. It was a good question. Moving on, getting into sports here. Parish tournament starts next week. It starts Tuesday. It's at Holden High School this year. Walker boys, who are the 4-time reigning champions, got the top seed again in the boys bracket. Doyle girls own the top seed in the girls bracket, which is considered a very balanced bracket. They're expecting a lot of competition on the girls' side. You can check all the seedings out at www.livingstonparishnews.com/sports. Also, William Weathers and Rob DeArmond caught up with Coach White and Coach Skiro from Doyle and Walker, respectively, to talk to them about earning the top seed and how they enjoy the parish tournament and that kind of thing. So check that out. You can also see it. We've posted it on our Facebook page earlier last night. So not earlier, I guess you could say. Yesterday evening. Walker girls soccer team has a talented freshman in Jordan Brooks, and they continue to win. As some folks commented on Facebook, as they work together, they play very well. They beat Thibodeau in a 4-0 win to claim their second win of the week and seem to be trending upward. So keep an eye on the Lady Cats there and their soccer team. Robinson Brothers is going to donate a 2014 Ford Focus to the Literacy and Technology Center's Automotive class. As you may or may not remember, a few weeks ago, Ford recognized the automotive class at the Literacy and Technology Center as one of the top automotive classes, especially for Ford vehicles in the country. They came out, did a presentation, thanked the class and that sort of thing. Now they're going to give them their own vehicle to work on consistently in that 2014 Ford Focus. They will be out at that would be Robinson Brothers Ford, will be at the Literacy and Technology Center to make that donation tomorrow morning, Thursday at 9 a.m. I know we said we were going to talk about the budget today. Not going to happen. Had a lot of flood stuff to talk about, a lot of drainage things, that sort of thing. We will be talking about the parish council. That will probably dominate tomorrow's morning update, morning show. As tomorrow night will be the council meeting. Please remember tonight there is a planning commission meeting. They'll be approving a lot of subdivisions, that sort of thing. So keep an eye on that. It looks like they've got 4 or 5 on the books, including the one that caused the meeting here at Fire Protection District 5 on the corner of Dunn Road and Lockhart. One last time with your traffic, there is a wreck at O'Neill Lane. It's causing delays all the way back to Juban. So it's going to be slow going this morning, causing some delays at 4-H Club Road, River Road, and 190. There it is, excuse me. 64 minor delays going into Central. Heavy traffic on 16 coming down out of Watson. Also heavy traffic on 16 as folks finally get their kids dropped off in school in Denham, and some minor delays on Burgess heading on to 447. It's currently 41 degrees, 68 degrees is your high, 44 your low, but it is going to be a bright and sunshiny day. Please enjoy your hump day. We hope you do. Beautiful weather, going to get to a crisp 68 as your high. One last time, my name is McHugh David, publisher and editor of the news. Appreciate you joining us this morning for the Livingston Parish News Morning Show. You can catch us on Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, Instagram, and YouTube. We're online, www.livingstonparishnews.com. We are also with an app, and we are once a week in print on Thursdays. Hope you have an excellent day. We will join you tomorrow in the booth for a little bit of Parish Council pre-meeting before they talk budget tomorrow evening at 6:30 p.m. Thanks for joining us. We hope you have a great day.